All right, I am going live here with you guys. I'm outside because it is Earth Day, and I thought no better of a place to do a live broadcast talking about Earth Day than with my friend Christine, and to have it outside. Okay, Christine, I see that you're approving you, and here we are. You are getting added. Just bear with me for a second.
Hey,
Woo! We did it!
hey, yes, and you
Wow!
inspired me to go outside too. So
Yay! Isn't
there.
it such a beautiful day outside?
Yeah, and we're a couple of provinces apart, and we
Away.
both have sunshine. So nice.
Yes, spring has definitely sprung. Well, hello everyone. I see there's already four of you guys on the live already. So hi, welcome. We're so excited for you guys to be here and stay tuned in. I hope that this engages you and that you really plug in with us for this discussion, because I think we're going to be talking about some pretty profound things and bringing some awareness to Earth Day. So, I'm going to introduce my friend Christine. For those of you who don't know her, Christine is a friend of mine, and she's really passionate about the earth. She is a climate activist. She actually ran for the Green Party, and she also wrote a book called Unfreeze Yourself, which is behind me. Oh, it's folded up here in my blanket. So she actually wrote a book about how what we can do to take action in our climate change, take action on climate change. I always jumble myself up when I try to say that sentence. And I just would love to get her insight. She's very knowledgeable. She also has a blog. She's been blogging for years about this kind of topic. So I feel like she has a lot of wisdom to share with us about Earth Day and why we should care. So with that, I'm gonna just ask Christine, why should we care about Earth Day? Like, why is it so important?
Yeah, why? Why? Well, the subtitle of my book is Five Ways to Take Action on Climate Change for the Sake of Your Family and Your Health and the Planet. So it's not, and those are all connected. And I think if you asked anybody here if why they should, look after the clean water, we all know, well, we drink water every day, don't we? Why do we want good food without a lot of pesticides in our bodies and the bodies of our the family members that we love? Well, that promotes health, and so we're connected. With why do we want clean air? It's because we all breathe it. So we all eat, we all breathe, we all drink water, and so much as we sort of feel like we're disconnected from nature, especially if uh, we live in the cities. Not everybody is as lucky as you and I to be able to have this kind of backdrop every day. But no matter where you live, you're still part of nature. So
Yeah,
as
for
long as you're
sure.
on this physical earth.
Definitely. And I would love to like paint a picture and just give you guys kind of a visual. And I just want to bring back some like childlike wonder and like beauty and mystery and majesty of the big green and blue planet that we live on. So if you were to like close your eyes for a second and you were to think back to your childhood and think about some time in your childhood when you were outside and you were doing something outside. Maybe you were playing, maybe you were walking, maybe you were fishing, maybe you were looking at puddles and fallen leaves. And if you were to get up really close, like I'm gonna give you an example. When me and my brother were younger, there was actually a robin's nest that built a nest in our woodshed because we had a fire stove. And we would climb up our woodshed and we would look in and we would peek in at this little robin's nest. And we were like, wow, like how beautiful is this? How cool is this that like these birds exist and they fly and they know how to create a nest and they have eggs and they're going to hatch in a couple of weeks. And it just like brings so much awe. And I just want you to like really connect with that. Like how beautiful is our world? And how cool is it that we get to have the freedom and the privilege, especially living in Canada, to have access to clean water and clean air, like Christine was talking about. So let's just really think about that for a second and just understanding what the importance of nature is and how it makes you feel, right? Because it brings like a sense of like awe or like, wow, like the world is huge and I'm just this tiny little person. But we're all equally important and we're here for a reason, right? Um, so, with that, Christine, how does the climate affect like you and your loved ones, or I should say, climate change or climate pollution? How does that separate us from that picture I just kind of painted?
Hmm. Well, it's pollution, and just like we don't want pollution in the water that we drink, and we don't want pollution in the food that we eat, we don't want it in the atmosphere either. And so, unfortunately, I mean, we've been really lucky that we've had access to these amazing energy sources. You know, for the last 100 to 200 years, we've been digging up, coal and then oil and gas, and it's driven incredible changes and a standard of living for us that just wasn't there before. And so, but now we know better, and when we know better, we have to do better. It turns out, even though we can't see what's coming out of our tailpipe, it doesn't go away. And so it affects me because I'm a mom of two girls, and not a grandmother yet, and there's no rush, Kate and Emma, but someday maybe. And I've got nieces and nephews, and I care about future generations. And we women tend to be caretakers. We tend to think beyond just our lives, and we want our children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews to be looked after.
Absolutely. And Christine, something that we were talking about before we went on this live video, and I was expressing how I live in Fort McMurray. I live in Alberta, and we are one of the top leading like industries in oil and gas. So talking about climate is a very sensitive thing for a lot of people, especially around where I live. And when
Mm-hmm.
we start to talk about it, people immediately can get really defensive, right? Because they feel like it's threatening their jobs and their livelihood. So I guess I really want this just to be like an open discussion and, just thinking about a few ways, a few things that we can do, a few things that we can like implement in our lives to help better take care of the earth that we've been given. We are like stewards of the earth, and I think it would be very irresponsible for us to not take care of it or to think about it or to misuse it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so especially Christine, you're talking about emissions, like CO2 emissions and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, but also just the mass amount of plastic that we create and the garbage that we throw out. Like, how has that
Yeah.
affected the world? Like, I mean, you think about landfills and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you have more to talk about it.
Well, it's all connected. It's this idea that out of sight, out of mind. If we throw, plastic away, that it's away. If we, drive our vehicles and we emit the carbon pollution, we can't see it. It doesn't touch us. It's gone. And I guess it's sort of like, I kind of think like we've been kids in a candy store, just going crazy, eating all of the candy that's there because it's there. And we've just been gobbling it up, and it's so tasty and good. And isn't it wonderful? And all of a sudden, it turns out that there are consequences that we didn't know about because we're just kids and we're just eating candy. And all of a sudden, the earth is giving us information, feedback, if you will, saying, not so good, not so good. That plastic, turns out it's really, really harming fish and turtles, and it's having such a devastating impact. And it turns out what's going out our tailpipes, and the way our food is grown, and what the food waste, and all of this is related to climate pollution too. And so it's all connected. And I think that maybe is the gift of climate change, because in our world, it's easy to feel disconnected, like we don't matter. And it
Hmm.
may be the lesson of global warming that actually everything we do has an impact, and there is no step too small or too big to take right now. It's an incredible time to be alive. And what a challenge. I guess I like to, I've come to think about it as an invitation to engage in the world in a way as if this maybe is a love story, and we care for what we love, right? So
Yeah.
you love, you're just a honeymooner. So, there's that romantic love. But there's that other kind of love where, I mean, when you're romantically involved, obviously you care for what happens to them. But there's all the ways we interact with all of the things around us. And if we interact as if, I mean, trees, it's sort of, for me, it's loving, isn't it, that the trees take our carbon dioxide and give us oxygen? That's a
Yeah.
wonderful reciprocal relationship. And so if we can, appreciate that, and yeah, really change the dynamic. And I mean, environmentalists are the worst. Often they are come across as judgmental and kind of Debbie Downers, like nobody can do anything right. It's hard to please them. And I admit that that's a tendency that I maybe have been guilty of in the past. But I'm really trying to change the way I'm thinking about it, and inviting people to really act out of love.
Yeah, I love that. And Christine, you have a group online and it's called A Climate of Love. So, I
Yes.
mean, that has to do with, actually, I'll just let you explain it. What are you trying to do with A Climate of Love?
Well, this is a really challenging time for a lot of people. And I've sort of, as you mentioned, been living with climate change. I've written there for years. I was blogging about it every day. I don't blog about it every day anymore, but it can be really overwhelming. And one of my other hats is that, I mean, I was a nurse for a lot of years, and now I have a wellness practice, and I do things like tapping and other kinds of energy medicine. So I thought that one of the ways that I deal with looking at what's going on, because it can be pretty devastating if you look at the big picture a lot, is I use those energy techniques to help me de-stress and sort of step into a different vision of hope and optimism. And so I have created this community that I host a Zoom meeting every Wednesday morning at, it would be 7 a.m. Your time, 8 a.m. my time, and 9 a.m. Every Sunday. That's 9 a.m. Mountain, your time. And I just invite people into a circle, and everybody brings their cares, their concerns for that week, their individual cares, and then their sort of collective cares. And you don't have to share them unless you want to, but we use ways of energy healing to sort of give ourselves support and comfort, and hopefully leave. It takes about half an hour. Hopefully everybody leaves feeling a little bit more supported and refreshed. So it's just
Hmm.
there as a resource for whoever wants it.
So, really, it's a community, right?
Yeah.
And this is a way that you found helps relieve kind of some overwhelm, because like exactly what you were saying, sometimes I think about all the things that are like wrong in the world and how broken our world is in terms of like everything, the environment, society, the way we treat people, and I'm like, I feel so helpless at times,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just like a cry, like, God, like why is this so bad, and
Hmm.
like our job here as like human beings is to love one another and to love everything that we've been given and take care of it. And we are also meant for community, we're meant for connection. So I would
Hmm.
say that your group, Christine, is a way for people to come and connect and feel like they're not alone in their concerns, and
Yeah.
then also maybe brainstorm and implement change for the things that they can do.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if you want me to. I sort of talked in generalities. I didn't talk about anything specific. There's so many things that we can do. So, sort of in the small picture, I mean, you and I are both passionate about eating healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try and eat as local as possible, and that's one way that you can have an impact. But guess what? Food waste is one of the top contributors to climate emissions. So that makes you think. I mean, and composting is great, and hopefully everybody composts who can. But just being aware of that, like what is in your fridge, if you throw out a lot of that and waste it, it's actually a way that, in a very small way, you're contributing to climate change. So just changing that behavior in your kitchen, um, in your house, is a way that you can contribute. And there's lots of ways you can go bigger, but I just thought it's kind of fun to bring it back home into our kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I'm very passionate about food, like you've said. Um, just thinking about our food system now, because things are so
Hmm.
mass produced, right? And the
Hmm.
systems that they put in place. And now, like the herbicides that they spray on and glyphosate and all these things, it's just further and further removing us from the way that food was originally intended to be. And this is damaging us in our health, right? And it's
Hmm.
causing chronic issues, gut health issues, a whole spew of things because we've become so
Well,
disconnected.
glyphosate, the World Health Unit has said that glyphosate is a carcinogen. So,
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
literally getting sprayed on our food. If your food is GMO, and it won't say if it's GMO because they're not required to by law, um, I will guarantee you probably like 98% of that stuff is all been sprayed with glyphosate, and it's actually, you can't wash it off and you can't cook it out. It's grown into your food,
Hmm.
and it's a weed killer. So
Hmm.
just being mindful about that stuff and pulling it into glyphosate. Glyphosate, only like 2% of the glyphosate that is actually used on food actually reaches its target. The rest of it is runoff into water. And that's going to affect our waterways, all of our marine life, not to mention all the
Yeah.
plastic that gets emitted into the ocean. It kills ecosystems. So we're literally like biting the hand that feeds us by using these kind of mass production ways to eat and
Hmm.
to live, and getting back to nature, getting back to the way, I'm going to say, God created it for us, is really where we're going to find optimal health. Um,
So are you saying
yeah.
people should eat organic, eat local? I mean, the thing with eating local is if you get to know your farmers, the people who are producing your food, you can ask them what they're using, because here in Red Lake there's not a lot of options, but there is in the summer. There's a fellow from Manitoba who comes up, and he's not an organic farmer, but whenever I'm buying from him, I ask him what he's used on his potatoes, what he's used on his peppers, and you can have that conversation if you're buying local. So
Yeah, like getting belly to belly with people, right? And not only that, you're also
belly to belly,
belly
that's
to
a little
belly.
scary. I don't know. I'm not sure he would like me to do that with him at the farmer's market.
Not in like the most literal sense possible, but I mean seeing the person that's supplying your food face to face. You are funny, Christine.
Yes.
You are
Yeah.
hilarious. Um, but yeah, it's either shopping non-GMO, organic as possible, eating local if that's an option, or if those aren't an option, because especially in this isolated communities, like you said, it's not
Hmm.
so like available.
Hmm.
Finding a good source wherever that is, plugging yourself into a good source where you know this company or provider actually cares about the earth, that cares about people,
Hmm.
that cares about the planet, and really digging
Yep.
into how food is being sourced. So that's like a huge thing for sure. Christine, you told me when you're starting to get really concerned about climate change, you started to change the way you ate, and then that had a
Hmm.
positive effect on you. So do you want to maybe talk about that?
Well, so I was blogging about climate change. I started in 2009, so it was a couple of years after that. But actually, it was one of my daughters who was learning about sustainable agriculture, and she started to talk about GMOs, genetically modified food, and I had no idea. Um, what that meant really, even though I was already blogging about climate change. And it was sort of a progression, again, making those connections that the way we our food is grown is, I can't remember how many, I think it's like 10 calories of oil right now go into 1 calorie of food that we take.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you point out, I started looking into genetically modified food, and I thought, wow, that's really not something I want in my food system or in my family. So it was really, um, again, making these connections to health, to pollution, to climate change, to just sort of taking some power back from big industry. And so luckily I'm married to a really good gardener who really enjoys gardening, and so we have a huge garden here. And I got involved locally with community gardens and, you know, farmers markets. And there's been a big shift. I don't know if you noticed when you were living here, Sarah, in Red Lake. That was a number of years ago. But people have their own chickens now. Some people have their own, you know, sheep and goats, and
What?
I'm. Yeah, yeah. There's always been sort of a tradition here, as you would know, of, you know, fishing and
Yes.
hunting. Um, and that's definitely a local food source, but it's just expanded. But it's actually going back to the way it was like 30, 40, 50 years ago. People had goats. I know there was an Italian family that had goats on Gold Shore Road in downtown Red Lake. So it's
Wow.
sort of getting back to our roots. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Okay,
I
we
think
don't have
there's,
any goats, but
well, maybe eventually, maybe one day they'll roam around
maybe.
your yard.
I've tried
um,
milking goats. It's not easy.
yeah. I can't say I've milked goats, but I think they're pretty cute. They have just weird way of making you fall in love with them. But yeah, anyway. Also in the city of Fort McMurray, this isn't well known, but you are allowed to have 4 chickens per household. You're allowed
That's
to like grow
awesome.
and yeah, take care of 4
Yeah.
chickens. So one of my
So,
dreams is to probably not on the property we live on now because it's quite small, is to own a larger chunk of land and have chickens and have a beehive and have these big gardens, and it just excites me so much, and I just know I'm getting
mhm,
closer to nature and the closer to living the way that we originally intended to, and in that causes a ripple effect because then I'm not
mhm,
buying into the industries that cause a lot of pollution. So I'm
mhm,
helping myself, and by getting back to nature and taking care of myself first, that actually has a ripple effect on the rest of society because it's also a message to consumers, to producers, because now our buying power matters, right? So now I'm going to be buying more like seeds and things that are more like environmental, so that
mhm.
is a big signal to the marketplace, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
choosing
But you know
where we
what? You
spend
can
our
be in,
dollars.
yeah. Exactly. But you can, I just want to say you can be environmentally friendly in the city too. In fact, some ways it's easier because you can bike and use public transport. And, you know, if your city supports things like farmers
Composting.
markets and things like that, and composting. Yeah, there are definitely ways to be eco-friendly in the city too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that for sure. Um, Christine, when you were talking about the trees and you were saying that it's so beautiful that we breathe out carbon dioxide and the trees in turn give us back oxygen. And it's such an amazing illustration. And I actually came across a photo, I think it was on Facebook a little while ago, and it was a picture of the human lungs. So you look at our
Mm.
lungs and you see the capillaries. You probably know how to say that better than I am. You're a
So
nurse.
capillaries,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, the capillaries in your lungs and how they branch out. And then you look at a tree and its roots and how they branch out. How
yeah,
funny is it that they mirror one another? And
yeah,
it just shows that we are not independent beings of the world. And when we are doing things to damage the environment, we are damaging our own lives and the lives of people that we love. So this is why we should
hmm,
care, right?
hmm,
Um, but I think um, a big barrier for people is like I want to like take care of the environment, or this is the issue because there's so many people who are silently suffering in the world right now. They've got so many things going on. They've got maybe
yeah,
health issues, they're not feeling well, they have a job that they're slave to, they don't have friends, whatever it is, and it feels like life is engulfing them. And when we talk about climate change, they're like, "Well, like why I don't have the mental capacity right now to think about climate change because all I'm trying to do right now is survive. I'm in
yeah,
surviving mode." And maybe I feel like we've already kind of gotten to this a little bit, but like, um, you know, taking care of yourself and getting back to the earth is in a way it's you're helping the environment, but once you start doing that and once you start getting life back into you and you start kind of getting awareness of like how your body feels when you get back out to nature or what it feels like to have compassion for something again, then you start
yeah.
thinking less about yourself and more about other people and other things. Could you
Hmm.
agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I also think that when you start to really connect with your body and in a way that isn't forcing it to be a certain size or uh, dieting just to get into a smaller a size of jeans, but you really start paying attention to your body and what it needs and what makes it feel good and nurtured and safe. And when you tune into that kind of level, you realize, like you say, when you see the picture of lungs and how it mirrors what trees and nature are, you just realize that for me, there's a real parallel between taking care of our bodies and connecting to taking care of the earth. You can't take care of the earth unless you're able to take care of your body in a really nurturing kind of a way. And it's really tough because the system, the culture that we live in is especially for women, has a lot of messages about what we should do, and keeps us pretty busy conforming to an ideal that almost none of us fit, whether it's the size of jeans we wear or the size of our bra or whatever it is. Like we have all of these messages about how imperfect we are, and I think it's really important that we start shifting into, like I said, just thinking about our lives as a love story and that we are supported. The earth supports us, even though we've been pretty nasty to her lately. She's still, the trees still give you oxygen when you breathe it out, even if you've been driving your Hummer around. And, we still have the air, we still have a connection. You and I haven't talked yet about sort of a spiritual connection to something outside of ourselves, but there are just these ways to feel connected, and I think to get out of that rat race of always feeling stressed and not enough, like you have to connect with the earth, and that helps you connect with a source outside of yourself.
Yeah, Absolutely, because we look outside and we see things that are so much bigger than ourselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it brings
Yeah.
questions, like deeper questions, like, why am I here? Like, out of all these things that have
Mm-hmm.
been created, yeah, I'm alive. Like, wow. And it's a sense of
Yeah.
like awe and wonder. And for me and what I believe, and I totally respect everyone and their beliefs, but I believe God placed me here for a reason. I know God created the world. I know God gave man dominion over the world, but that was to be good stewards, and that wasn't to exploit, abuse, or destroy. And I just think about like for example, I'm looking right now at my backpack. There's a little spider that's crawling on my backpack, and I'm like, God, you created that spider like for a purpose, and like it has a life, and just like the blades of grass. And think about all the intricate designs, even on a stem of a leaf, or the crystal shape of like a snowflake, how no like shape is the same. And I'm just blown away every time I go outside in nature, and it makes me, like I said before, take my eyes off of me and think about other things and other people, and other living things, which is the earth as well, right?
Yeah. I really love that you're emphasizing sort of that sense of awe because that really can get us into connecting again, like you say, with what's outside of ourselves, that this amazing blue planet that we're on. I think what is that quote that I have on my Facebook now? Something about, we live on a blue planet, where the our tides, our water is influenced by the cycles of the moon. I mean, it's a miracle. We're all miracles, and it's easy to uh, lose, to lose that sense in the everyday grind. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Christine. So you have 5 ways to take action. I know you've kind of already briefly talked about them, but
Hmm.
could you maybe go over them really quickly? And I know the last one's a little bit of a bigger topic, so
Hmm.
um, just go over the first.
Oh, okay. 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 Good. Well, the first one is what we're doing right now, which is to talk about climate change. I have been doing this since 2009, and yes, exactly. So the first one is to talk about it because for a long time now, you're breaking up a little bit, but can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? No? Okay. Okay. Yeah, hopefully our connection stays good. All right. So, yeah, talk about it. Yeah, a lot of people are so overwhelmed by it that they don't even want to talk about it. So it's really important that we do, though. Obviously, ignoring it isn't helping. So let's put our heads together. There's a lot of things that we can do. So talk about it, and that's number one. And number two is get connected to other people who also care about it, especially if you're feeling that real grief when you think about sort of the state of the world, like you were talking about. So connect with other people who are feeling the same way, but who are moving into action. And these days, there's so many connections to be made online that you don't have to feel isolated. And so that's the one, too. I think the third one is connect to nature, like you and I are doing, again, to just get recharged and remember why you're doing it. I mean, as a climate activist, I often got overwhelmed and depressed. And if you feel that way, there's no joy. There's no joy in what you're doing. And so it's really important to stay connected. The fourth one is this is much less of an issue than when I started doing this 10 years ago, but just know that the science is settled. There isn't any question. It's our emissions that are destabilizing the weather and causing more floods and droughts and that sort of thing. So just know that the science is settled. I don't argue about it. There's some people who are still interested in sort of disputing it, and just know you're standing on firm ground and move on. And then the fifth one, which we may or may not talk about today, is just know that it's time to start making it more expensive to pollute. And so that's putting a price on carbon pollution, and which the federal government has done. People are unhappy about it. Sometimes I kind of feel though like we would give our kids, we do so much to make a better future for our kids, send them to school, help them with their homework, put them in sports, do all of this stuff. Why wouldn't we pay a few cents a liter at the gas station, to make sure that they have a cleaner world to live in with a stable climate?
Yeah, I love that. And I think I would really appreciate, and I think some of my viewers would also really appreciate it too. I don't want to get political. I don't want to side with political parties about this or that, but I just want to talk about the issue of like pricing carbon. And Christine, until we had a conversation a few days ago, I still really didn't understand what the carbon tax was. I thought, they're putting a price on the carbon, and it was just a big money grab for the government. And like, I like the idea of like, okay, making pollution more expensive, but like the thought behind it, like what's it doing? Like what I need to know, and without getting into like a whole bunch of like bureaucracy,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. And I really just want to know. I just want to seek, right? So maybe you could touch on what actually happens with the carbon tax, and maybe dispel some of the myths that the government just like keeps it all and pockets their lines their paychecks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's see how can I do this in a in a way that makes sense. So some provinces have a price on carbon already, including British Columbia. And the federal government's carbon price is called revenue neutral, which means that none of the money stays in the government coffers. It's all dispersed to Canadians. So I reminded you when we were chatting a couple of days ago, when you do your taxes this year, make sure that you claim your carbon rebate.
Yeah, you
So
get
it
money back,
should,
guys.
for most Canadians, you will get more money back in your carbon rebate than you will have paid out in the extra carbon taxes during the year. And you go, well, and people say, well, that's ridiculous. That's not doing anything then. If they're just giving it back, what's the point? Just let me keep it in the first place. But actually, it's really, really important to send a economy-wide signal that it's time to stop using our sky, our atmosphere, as a dumping ground for pollution. So even if all of the money is rebated, and there's some governments that keep it and use it, some people want it to go towards public transportation and things like that. I never argue with that. Sure, whatever you want. What I want is pollution priced, and what you can lobby your government individually with what you want to do with it. I'm happy if I get a rebate and you get a rebate. I'm happy if it goes to public transportation, if that's what people want and they've lobbied the government for. So the big thing is time to stop using our sky as a dumping ground.
Yeah, for sure. And Christine, like I said earlier, a lot of people that I know and where I live is in the oil sands. So people get super, super defensive about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
everyone wants to axe a carbon tax. And I'm like, sure, I would like to like save money. It sounds nice. I don't have to pay as much at the pump. But like, I'm just like thinking bigger, and like because I want this to be a discussion without people jumping on the defense. I hope you guys can hear me. It's just getting windy,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope
It
it's
is a
not
little bit.
okay. I think about what are the bigger implications, and although I see the value of having like oil and gas, and like you said earlier, I know it's gotten us so far and it's great. I personally don't believe oil and gas is going to be leaving anytime in like say the next 5 or 10 years. But I think it's
Hmm.
very, very wise to start thinking about alternative, um, you know, ways of producing energy that is a lot more efficient for the environment, and that it's not actually going to threaten jobs. That, like you said, and I think you probably know more information, it actually opens up a whole new job sector. So would you
I love
maybe like to
actually
talk
that
about
it's
that?
that it's getting, yeah, it's I love that it's getting windy right now, because of course that's
Yeah,
one of the ways that
wind
you can
power.
generate energy. So we just need to have you sitting near a windmill while you're chatting, and energy will be generated. So the thing is, people want jobs. They want good jobs. Do they have to be jobs in the oil sands? I would think not. And right now, there's an article not that long ago that talks about the jobs in clean energy in Canada have outpaced jobs in the oil and gas sector. So that's only going to grow. People want jobs, and I think that's we need to. I mean, I don't work in oil and gas, and neither do you, but we can understand that people want jobs. But do they have to
Mm-hmm.
be in the oil and gas sector? I'm not sure. That's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, and even like coal and stuff like that. And I feel like I might get a little bit of flack and pushback from people here. But I want people to know, just because I'm talking about this doesn't I don't want to say I'm blatantly against, like, people so often these days they want to divide themselves, right? Like they want to say, are you on our team? Oh, if you're not for us, you're against us. And I'm like, you know what, I want to get away from the pettiness of like choosing sides and battling it out, and just be like, can we just actually have a real conversation and try and like dive into the truth of it and find some solutions that improves, like, betters everybody. It betters my family, it betters your family, it betters the environment, it betters the, like, in a global way as well. So this is
Hmm.
just what I really want to stress about having this conversation. So if you're having
Hmm.
like that urge within you right now to be like, this is dumb, like, they're bashing oil sands or job sector or whatever. I guess prayer and hope for you guys is that just that you will listen, and maybe just consider and just ask questions. It might not even change your mind, but having the time to listen is something that's so powerful. So yeah, with that, Christine, I sorry, I feel like I cut you off there, so I'm sorry. I kind of went on a
No,
little bit of a tangent,
no.
but
Amen. Amen, Sarah. That's all I'll say.
yeah, but it's like, we can still live in a world that prospers, that still gives us job security, that still gives us time with our family. I put a poll on, I think, Facebook and Instagram the other day, and I said, do the words people, planet, purpose, and prosperity resonate with you? And like, I don't know about you guys, but those hit. Those 4 words there hit everything in my life that matters. And it's like, okay, what can we do to achieve a life that emulates those 4 words: people,
Mhm.
planet, purpose, prosperity? And that's getting back to the earth, that's taking care of our environment. It's watching how we eat food, how we take care of our body, how we're connecting with others, are we having conversations with others? Can we reduce our emissions by choosing to bike or walk, which, by the way, gets you out in nature, makes you feel more connected? Can we choose to pay a higher price for something for the sake of education, for the sake of future generations, for the sake of healthcare? Can we do that? So I guess that's my questions to you guys. Christine, do you have any conversations? Laura Lee, yes, having conversations beats choosing sides and gets more done. Love that you're doing this. Thank you, Laura Lee. I hope that that's inspired you guys. And yeah, Christine, do you have any other like comments or anything that you want to say about it?
Well, I no, I think that you really summed it up really well. We all have so much more in common than our differences, no matter how people would like to divide us. I totally agree. We want to be safe. We want to provide for our families. We want to prosper, and we all want clean air and clean water and good food. And let's build bridges on that and work together, because it really is not really a problem that's going to be solved by one person. It's going to be solved by all of us working together.
Mm-hmm. But that also doesn't mean that one person, my what I do matters, but it will really make an effect. It'll really cause change when all of these one people decide to take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility
Yep.
and link together, and that's where like
Yep.
massive change starts. It you can't do it alone, but your actions can still make a difference if that makes sense.
Yep. Caring for what we love.
Yeah, the love story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine. I feel like this has been a really good chat. We've covered a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you guys are here on the live or the replay and you have questions, we would love to hear about it. You can contact us or you can ask your questions here. And, like, let's keep this conversation going. I mean, Earth Day, yes, it's one day, but it's not the only day that we should be thinking about this stuff. So I really hope that this has inspired you guys and given you some food for thought, some things to chew on. And Christine, do you have any other questions or
No,
thoughts?
I love that we're wrapping up with references to food, because, of course, that's that's what we love to talk about some of the time too. And I find that food is a really good way to bring people together on this issue
Mhm.
too. So
Yeah.
it's appropriate that we're wrapping up with leaving food for thought.
And Christine, I just have to say, you and your husband, your garden's amazing. And if you guys ever have the pleasure of eating fresh garden food, do it. And Christine, you guys do it well. So I want to thank
Yes.
you, Christine, for what you have already done and how you've already affected the lives of people and how you've already caused like ripples and just bringing awareness and engagement and change. So, guys, this is a book that Christine wrote. It's called Unfreeze Yourself. If you want to buy it, if you want to read it, contact her. I'm sure she's still got copies or ways for
And
you to read it.
it's on Amazon and McNally Robinson
Wow, there
booksellers.
you go.
So there you
Cool.
go.
And then also Christine has that group, A Climate of Love, which is a community, and she goes through tapping and different ways of coming together and all those kinds of things. So Christine, like just you have so much value to give people, and I just want to like thank you for that and just to really appreciate you for that.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. It's always lovely to connect with you. I really
Hmm.
appreciate you hosting this on Earth Day. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we hope that this has led you guys, the viewers, to inspire you to take action, whether that's like riding your bike or recycling or reducing what you're using, and just thinking about more global things. We would love to know, and we hope that kind of like lights a fire underneath your butt. But with that, I think we're gonna tune out, and I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day. And
Bye
now it's really
bye.
bright. Bye.